Okay, so this video is going to be, in my opinion, the 7 best selections of the NFL draft. Just to be clear, these are not the 7 best players, of course, because would usually just be the top 7 picks, or at least close to that. No, what I'm doing is the 7 picks that I think the value was maximized the most. So yeah, let's just get into the list, starting off with number 7. Number 7 is the Arizona Cardinals getting Will Johnson midway through the second round. Now, if you're curious at all as to why this is only number 7, because listen, the guy was projected to go 13th. He ends up falling all the way to, I think, 47th was the pick. It was mid-second round. The reason why I have to be a little bit lower on it and can only put it at 7 is just simply because there was apparently an injury that caused him to fall. How bad is that? If NFL teams were scared off of it, maybe it's not quite the slam dunk pick that you would think, but still a really good pick. So I still think he's a great player, and they could have a shutdown outside corner in the middle of the second round. That alone, for me, feels like you have to put him on the list. Number 6, I'm going with Jahdae Barron, the safety / corner, really I would say corner out of Texas, who maybe can do several different things. The Denver Broncos decided to select him, and I think it's a really good pick. For one thing, I just think he's a really good player and worth more than pick number 20, so from that perspective, I like it. I think putting him in a good situation should help, and also, I think it's a smart football team that doesn't necessarily say, well, we have a good enough defense. Yeah, we could use another corner maybe, but we'll figure it out. Let's just focus on offense. I think it's a smart team that says, you know what? This is the best player available. We'll play him, so why not just take this guy? So I think for those 2 reasons, I like this pick a lot, which is why I'm putting it at 6. Number 5, I am going to go with Kelvin Banks Jr. This was the New Orleans Saints pick at 9, where a lot of people thought that this was going to be quarterback. I remember when I did my predictive mock draft, I believe I got the first 8 picks exactly correct, although I didn't expect the trade, so I still ended up getting them correct, but just the Jaguars and Browns were flipped. The first one I got wrong was at number 9. I went with Shedeur Sanders. I bought into that hype, but no, Kelvin Banks Jr. ended up being the picks. He's just a player I think is great. He was my he was my tackle 1 in this draft class. My favorite offensive lineman, ends up being the 3rd one taken. And really, I think there were 3 kind of prospects that people consider to be elite level prospects with Campbell and Membo, and I feel like a lot of times anytime you just get like one of those 3, you feel pretty good about yourself. So sitting at 9, not having to move up, but still getting a player who could be a franchise left tackle for years to come, like that's pretty good value there. So ultimately, really like that selection. Number 4, I'm going Trey Amos, the corner, outside corner for the Washington Commanders. I think Washington went into this draft saying we don't necessarily need to go secondary. While I think a lot of people would say, oh no, you do need to go secondary, I don't think that's quite how they viewed it. I think they trust that Lattimore is going to take a step forward and have some other players in the room that can do okay, but I feel like they should have addressed it again. Get a player who, there's too many question marks in the cornerback room. Get a guy who you trust should be an outside corner, and if he does live up to that billing, you should be able to have that. Worst case scenario, the other guys are still good. That's not a bad situation if you have more corners, because injuries happen, and so having depth there still matters. Also, let's just be honest, Lattimore was, some Washington fans disagreed, but Lattimore, when I watched him play, was not very good. He was not New Orleans Saints Lattimore when he went over to Washington. I think he was coming off an injury. You're hopeful he will be back to New Orleans Saints Lattimore this next season, and there's a very good chance that's what happens. But if it doesn't happen, you'd like to have Trey Amos who can step in and be that player. And again, for a late second round pick, that's just tremendous value. I think he was way underdrafted, and I think he'll be a good player for them. Number 3, I'm going Abdul Carter, who was picked 3rd overall, is I think the 3rd best prospect overall. But the reason why I'm going with this is because for the Giants at 3, they did have a decision to make. And as we know now, they like Jackson Dart. They could have considered saying, you know what, we're just going to go quarterback at 3 and not think about it. Or they could have said, we have edge rushers already. Do we need Abdul Carter? Do we need to go that route as well? But ultimately, he's just the best prospect on the board, and any other move they would have made would have resulted in them getting a worse player. So even though you could have talked yourself out of it if you wanted to, I think it was smart by the Giants to not overthink things too much and just get the best player, who I think Carter will be, he at least is the best prospect that was still on the board. Number 2, I'm going to Philadelphia Eagles with Jahad Campbell, who they actually traded up one spot to get Campbell, which is interesting. But to me, this is a player who I know not every team values off-ball linebacker too much, but I think the Eagles have shown that, with the Saquon Barkley thing, getting a fantastic player at a position that maybe isn't considered the most valuable is still really a good idea. And with Campbell being able to play next to Zach Bond as Nakobe Dean, I'm assuming this means the injury means that Dean probably won't be playing every snap next year, certainly. And who knows, if Dean comes back from the injury early and is good, well, that's not the worst thing in the world to have 3 good linebackers. But ultimately, I just think he was, again, best player available, and this is what the Eagles do, right? They like guys who come from schools where they're going to transition to the NFL a little easier. He should be a good player, a day 1 starter, and has potential to be a Pro Bowl caliber player. So getting that at pick 31, yeah, that's just good value. And so because of that, I have to put that on the list. It is my second favorite pick of this draft class, but it was not my favorite pick. And my favorite pick actually belongs to a team that notoriously I don't always praise. But number 1, Ted McMillan of the Carolina Panthers. Now, there was a lot of talk about what the Carolina Panthers were going to do with their 8th overall selection. And for me, I when I saw people saying like, oh, what about Jalen Walker? I thought that was kind of crazy. Like, don't get me wrong, there were some other good prospects, and Jalen Walker has potential and all that stuff that they could have gone with. And I also understand, yes, the Panthers defense is in trouble, and they could use some star players on defense, but ultimately, Bryce Young has had to make the most out of bad situations since he has joined Carolina. And I usually don't like drafting for need, but the one exception is when you're trying to develop a young quarterback. And Bryce Young, it's not like they could use a receiver. They need a receiver. That is the legitimate need right there. They need someone who can win on the outside. And to me, I think McMillan is worth a top 8 pick. I think he is that caliber of player. I think he's worth maybe even more than that. So while a lot of prospects in this draft class, maybe it's like, okay, is this guy worth the pick 20, pick 20, or, well, that was someone who I put on this list, but, is this guy worth pick X? Well, I don't know, but it's a weaker draft, so let's just get him anyway. I think McMillan is someone who was worth the selection that he got drafted with, and it's a position of need to help out Bryce Young. And there was thought of, are they going to do something different? Are they going to draft an edge rusher? Are they going to draft one of these other players who, again, could turn out to be very good players? That's certainly possible, right? But I just think McMillan was the right choice here, and you need receivers if you're going to go on a deep run, or at least develop a young quarterback. So because of that, that is my favorite selection. I will also give a quick shout out to Luther Burden III. I put that one as my honorable mention. That was the one I had to cut. That would have been number 8, but really like that selection as well. But yeah, those are my 7 favorite choices, favorite draft selections of this draft. Let me know in the comments below, which ones do you agree with, which ones do you disagree with. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.